situation that had already been envisaged at the time of Anne of Austria's betrothal in 1612. In poetical language, the future queen was described as the moon to her husband's sun. Just as the moon borrows its light from the sun, the monarch's death means that the setting sun gives way to the moon and confers on it the power of shedding light in its absence. The potential bride and bridegroom were then both 10 years old. A quarter of a century later, the reality was less poetical. Louis XIII was not in good health, and a regency in the next 13 years, the age at which a French king reached his majority, was more likely than not. How long would it be before Anne, like Catherine de Medici, was promoting herself as an image of revered maternality at the heart of government? Furthermore, the dynastic map of Europe was transformed. The heir presumptive to the throne of France, the king's younger brother, Gaston, Duc d'Orléans, on being shown physical proofs of the baby's masculinity, had to accept that his rising hopes of accession had been fatally dashed. But Gaston himself had only daughters. Next in line were the French princes of the blood, notably the Prince de Condé and his two sons, the Duc d'Enghien and the Prince de Conti. Their hopes were similarly blighted. On the other hand, the birth of a prince not only cut off hopes, but also instigated ambitious thoughts of his eventual marriage to a princess. Gaston's daughter by his first marriage, Anne-Marie-Louise de Montpensier, was the richest heiress in France, from the fortune of her mother, who had died at her birth. She did not allow an 11-year gap in age to prevent her dallying with thoughts of the Dauphin as my little husband. Even more significant for the future was another equally august birth in Spain. 5 days after the ecstatic Queen Anne gave birth to Louis, her sister-in-law, wife of Philip IV, gave birth to a princess. These two high-born babies were in fact double first cousins with identical grandparents, since a brother and a sister of France had married a brother and a sister of Spain. Unlike France, however, Spain allowed females to succeed. Anne of Austria had had to renounce her own rights on her marriage. There was at least a theoretical possibility that the Infanta Maria Teresa would one day succeed to the throne of Spain, or her children would. Another theoretical possibility always present in the mind of Queen Anne was that Maria Teresa might one day make a bride for Louis. Under the circumstances, it is easy to understand how the infant Louis was described as Dieudonné or Deodatus, God-given. And even as the years passed, the apparently miraculous nature of his conception and birth was never forgotten. One German diplomat would refer to the king's quite extraordinary birth over 40 years after the event. How miraculous was this birth, so unexpected and so awe-inspiring for the mother? Certainly a great deal of prayer had been applied to the subject as the years passed. There were pilgrimages to shrines, as befitted a queen who throughout her life liked nothing so much as to visit convents and holy places. St. Leonard was invoked against sterility. A hermit who was believed to have founded a monastery near Limoges in the 6th century, his intercession was held responsible for many miracles. He was otherwise the patron saint of prisoners, and after all the queen was in the prison of her infertility. The queen was fast approaching the age at which childbearing itself was felt to be unlikely. This was a period when women were generally held to age faster than men, losing their bloom early. No woman is beautiful after 22, was a popular saying, going further downhill after 30. Certainly, by the time of the Queen's 36th birthday, on the 22nd of September 1637, and 35 was often seen as a cut-off point, her relationship with her husband and also with her adopted country of France had already had a long and troubled history. The marriage of the two royal teenagers took place on the feast of St. Catherine,